prices collecting liquidity, stop loss hands, liquidity sweep, liquidity. If you have been trading Forex for a while, or even just a little while, I know you have heard the phrases prices collecting liquidity, stop loss hands, liquidity sweep, liquidity. So what exactly is liquidity? I know that other people make it sound like it's something that is very complicated and it's so much of a big deal. It isn't. So in this video, I'm going to try to break it down to you. I'm going to try to explain what liquidity is, examples of where you can find liquidity, and what a liquidity sweep is. Liquidity is essentially the availability of orders in the market. So in order for a trade to happen, there has to be buyers and there has to be sellers. If you're shorting or you want to short a market, there has to be buyers. If we're buying, there has to be sellers. So the more orders there are in a particular area in the market, that is where liquidity is. When you are looking at your chart or when you are analyzing, of course you want to place your trades in areas where other traders are most likely going to place their trades as well, right? You don't just want to place your trade anywhere. Now, this is where you hear a lot of traders saying, okay, there's a lot of liquidity resting above this high, or there's a lot of liquidity resting in this area, because you want to place trades where there's a pool of liquidity. How does liquidity form, or rather, where does liquidity form? Like, let us look at a basic chart, right? Imagine price is going up, and then it chooses to reverse at a certain price level, and then in it doing that, it's creating a high. It reverses, and then it chooses to retrace back up to that very same price level, and then price creates another high in that very same area. So now you have two highs that are on the same level. Clearly, this is a special price level. Clearly, a lot of traders react to this price level. What do you think is going to happen when price retraces again back to that very same area? Obviously, a lot of traders are going to see that as resistance and they're going to place their sells. Why? Because there's a liquidity pool in that area. This is where liquidity sweeps also happen, but we haven't gotten to that part. So now I want to explain why price goes for liquidity, right? And why liquidity sweeps happen before I even explain them. I just need you to understand this. Let's talk about stop losses only for a brief period. What is a stop loss? A stop loss is an order. I know a stop loss is a risk management plan, but a lot of people do not know this. A stop loss is an inverse order. When you're selling, your stop loss is a buy order. So when your trade closes, it creates an inverse transaction. That's just how the market works. Okay, let me explain to you so that you understand. Remember, the assets that we're trading, they're not ours. We are borrowing them conceptually. From who? The third party that we're trading with. Let me make an example with the sell order. Let's say Prudence decides to sell you one Bitcoin for $60,000. The Bitcoin is not mine. It's for this third party, right? Give me one Bitcoin, borrow me one Bitcoin, let me sell it to this person. I sell it to you for $60,000. You buy it, but now I have to return the Bitcoin to the owner. But by the time I have to return the Bitcoin to the owner, Bitcoin is now at $61,000. Now I have to hlanganisa $1,000 from my own pocket to pay my third party. This is how you lose money when you're selling an asset and then it increases in value. Because now I have to fend $1,000 from my pocket and pay my supplier. I don't know if I'm making sense. So this is how your stop loss is an inverse order. Because when you're closing a trade, when I'm closing the sell, it's an inverse order, guys. I don't know how to explain it, but it's an inverse order. Same with buys. When you're buying an asset, okay, when you're buying it, you're not necessarily borrowing it, right? You bought the asset. I bought the Bitcoin for $60,000, right? I bought the Bitcoin for $60,000, and then I have a stop loss. Remember, the stop loss is a sell order. I bought it for $60,000, right? And then it decreases in value, and it is now $59,000. I lost $1,000. Does that make sense? That's how I blow my account, that's how blow or that's how you make a loss or whatever. Now try to take that example and put it into the forex realm and how brokers work and how trading works. Good. Now we covered the stop loss. Now I can explain why price goes for liquidity. So remember, in order for you to sell, somebody has to buy. In order for you to buy something, somebody has to sell it to you. Now remember that we are trading with big companies. We're trading with hedge funds. We're trading with big people or big, businesses or companies that have a lot of capital. You understand? So in order for them to place a certain trade, they don't use a 0.01 lot size like you and I. They trade large volumes. So in order for them to buy large volumes, there has to be a large volume of sellers. Now that is where they trap you into liquidity. Good. I don't think I need to explain that further. So now let's imagine with the example that I gave you, to say we have two highs. We have two highs and price is approaching the resistance, right? So now when it's approaching the resistance, obviously when it reaches the resistance, a lot of traders are going to place sells for obvious reasons. A lot of traders, 90% of traders, they're going to place sells. When they place sells, where do they put their stop loss? Their stop loss is right above the high. Just kancane. You understand? Now this is where they trap you, because your stop loss for your sell order is an inverse buy order. The big market movers, they want to sell. They're trapping you now. They want to sell. So in order for them to sell, there has to be a large volume of buyers. But 90% of traders, they're selling. So how do they force you to buy? They're going to trigger your stop loss. Your stop loss, that is a buy. And when they trigger your stop loss, then that's why you see price shooting down after that. Right, I love the markets, like such an interesting concept, So that's why price will always go for liquidity, because it's not you and I that are only trading the markets. There's big people that make millions and trillions out of this market, and they need a large volume of traders, and so they need to trap us into liquidity. Okay, Prudence, so now where do we find liquidity? I think I just gave you the answer already. Find it in highs, lows, swing highs, swing lows, major highs, major lows, and then there's intra activity that happens in between, like liquidity resting on order blocks, liquidity resting on, okay, so supply and demand, they're more like the highs that I just explained. So yeah, and your order blocks and your other people use trendline liquidity. Yeah, just cool stuff like that. I know somebody's gonna watch this video and say, Sharp, I'm gonna look for a high and I'm gonna place a sell, or I'm gonna place. No. Liquidity is not a strategy. No. Liquidity is not the strategy. Now, liquidity is where you make your money, where you place your trades, but you need a strategy outside of that so that you can catch the liquidity. I don't know if I'm making sense. Nah? So now it's just explaining what liquidity is. It's not a complicated concept. It's not it's just your trend line, your supply and demand, your order block, your wara wara. Oh yes, guys, we have come to the end of the video. I'm trying to refresh my memory. I'm not sure if I covered everything. I said I want to cover what liquidity is, where to find liquidity, and liquidity sweeps. I think I've done justice. If you want to learn more about anything, let me know in the comments, guys. Please use me. If you want to know anything, I can make multiple videos. If there's certain things that you don't necessarily understand as far as liquidity, or like you want me to get into the chart, you want me to, you know, do the nice things, just comment down below and let me know. So yes, as for me, it's goodbye for now. But as for me, it's goodbye for now.